Hi, it's Lou Manfredini, Ace's Home Expert, and in today's video, we're going to show you how to paint a room for beginners. We're going to show you the steps that it takes, and it's easier than you think. Start by clearing the room of any furniture so nothing's in your way. Make sure that before you do any painting, you remove any of the covers that might be on the receptacles, anything that you don't want to get paint onto. And then any imperfections in the wall you want to take care of with a little wall spackle, which we've already done. Okay, when it comes to taping off a wall, you want to start by using painter's tape, of course. Now, when you go to the hardware store, there's going to be a lot of choices for you, different brands, as well as different sizes. And the sizes do matter depending on what you want to tape off. Now, the thinner tapes, the reason you would use this is if you have a detailed area where you want to place some tape where maybe it's got to bend a little bit or it's a sharp edge on a piece of trim, then you would use the thinner roll of tape because it's more pliable and easier to apply. Then you'd probably go over the top of that with a wider piece of tape just to buy you a little time when you're using the brush so that you don't get the paint on that area. One thing to consider is that I want you to get a couple rags, and with a damp rag, before you tape off, say, a piece of trim, wipe down, make sure you get any dust off of there, and then make sure it's dry. You're going to apply the tape to that area carefully, and then once you get that nice clean edge, go back over it with that damp rag to set it. The whole idea is that you want to make sure that you press the tape into the spot where it gives you that. Some manufacturers call it an edge lock, so you don't get any paint bleeding underneath the tape. It's very important to push down on that so it sets there carefully. The other thing to remember is painter's tape has a release time, meaning that depending on the type of rolls that you buy, they typically can be on the surface for about 15 days, and then you need to remove it. If you don't, you could get residue from the adhesive on the part that you place the tape on. So kind of keep that in mind about the release date and the painting project and how long that's going to take. What I'm going to do is put this tape on, and I want to go right on top of this edge right here of the trim. So the trick with the smaller tape is to cut it in small pieces, and you really have to work on your detail to kind of get it set in place and work it with your nail. So you set that right on top there so you get it nice and tight. The whole idea is that you want that tape to cover that spot, and then use your fingernail or a tool to set it in there and then press it in place. Once that's there, take a damp rag. It's kind of a painter's professional trick to set that back down there, and then get another piece and keep working your way down. This is the detail work that's going to make all the difference in the world, and you have to set that piece of tape so the edge locks in there so that the paint doesn't bleed underneath. So this is really important that you push it in place and set it. Okay, we're making our way with the painter's tape around the area to kind of tape off the area where we're going to put the paint on. Okay, it's time to actually cut in around all the areas on the wall that we put the tape on. We're using a Clark & Kensington in an eggshell. The color is called Silk and Satin. I like to use a smaller container instead of working out of the gallon, so I'm just going to pour a little bit into this container here. You don't need a lot because you're just going to be cutting in. This Clark & Kensington is a really thick paint that covers very, very well. And you're going to see that more than likely we're going to need 2 coats, but that first coat's going to have some really nice coverage. When you're cutting in around here, remember we set all the tape, we know everything's good, and then we're going to go and take the brush and we're going to paint a little bit, maybe like 2.5 inches wide. So we're going to cut around all the areas here to put our first coat of paint on there so that when we go back and roll it, we don't get the roller onto the wall area. And so we're going to work our way through here and start applying the paint. Okay, the wall's cut in. Now it's time to actually put the paint on the wall using a roller. I'm using a 3/8 inch nap semi-smooth roller cover. I've got a roller frame and I'm using an extension pole. Even though I'm tall enough to kind of reach this without the extension pole, it does give you better control. And I have found that when you use a pole, you can just apply the paint much easier. So I think you'll find that it really does work out well. Now, when it comes to getting the paint on there, you want to make sure that first couple passes, you got to load up the roller. And so you're going to kind of spin it, move it in there, and you can see how I'm loading up that roller with the paint. I'm going to start applying the paint. And, you know, there's a lot of debate about whether you make a W or an M, whatever it is. I have found that you just got to go slowly and apply the paint and kind of step back. You want to make sure you have good lighting so you can see what's going on as you're applying the paint. You're getting it nice and smooth. You're stepping back. Again, remember, you want good lighting. And once you feel like, oh, I've got good coverage there, then take that roller back to the pan and get some more paint on there. Remember that the colors can change once the paint dries. So if you don't love the color wet, you may like it once it dries. Okay, the wall is painted, and as I mentioned, you're going to need 2 coats. So you want to make sure that you've got some paint in the pans and everything, but with the roller, you don't want it to dry out. Remember, we're talking a couple of hours. Maybe we're going to put a fan on there. Trick is to take a little plastic bag like this and just wrap that roller up. That way it won't dry out. It'll kind of stay in there, kind of wet and moist, and then in a couple hours you can take it all off and start over again. Okay, with the paint dry, it's now time to remove the painter's tape. Now this you want to be careful with because the paint is still wet. And remember, I put 2 layers of tape here, so you want to just gently pull this away. I'm just going to kind of do one at a time. Now I want to show you here as I pull the tape away, I'm kind of pulling away on an angle so that I'm getting a nice crisp line. And I'll tell you this too, that removing this tape while the paint is still drying gives you a better chance of it not pulling and, you know, kind of making a chunk of paint leaving there. So this paint's been on the wall for a couple hours. So it's dry, but it's not cured. And that's the best time, in my opinion, to remove the tape to give you that nice clean line. And that's it. If you need more help, just go to your local Ace Hardware store. We are always willing to help you. And remember to follow us on our YouTube channel. And you can always visit us at acehardware.com. Ace is the helpful place.